It is Monday, June 3rd, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very educational, get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday. We did a bit of interesting stuff from the ground on the, completely drew a blank there. I'm like trying to get excited here. Shit. It was basically from the mount, you know, where you have your opponent on mount, full mount on you, and escaping from there. And, as far as the techniques we were going over, it was kind of a refresher for at least one of them. But the interesting thing I thought for it was there's a little bit of a difference on the way you manipulate the feet on this one. It's like it was specifically if your opponent has their ankles crossed and how to deal with that. And honestly, I found that one probably as easy to deal with, if not even easier than the original secret black belt escape. And that one is just where you make a brace with your hands around hip level and you push down on that and turn onto your side. And at the same time, you bring one of your feet over their foot and capture it in, and then you push that knee down and you get it over into half guard and migrate from there. Personally, I like that one a lot. I've done it quite a bit, and I like to take that one up to a back take if at all possible. And if not possible, the other option I really like from there is the sweep, where you grab their hip and then you just fall back and fling them backward. It's kind of cool. Anyway, as far as the technique goes, I need a lot of work on it. I have a tendency to flatten out my hips too much, and it's kind of difficult for me to get up on my side with my hips. I don't know why. But like I said, it is something that I've been experiencing as an issue for quite a while. I don't know. I put on a couple of pounds over the weekend, so it's like one or two, not. And so when I'm saying a couple, I mean like one or two, not 8 or 9. Nonetheless, it's a bit of a step back for me, and I'm definitely going to have to be more ardent with my diet this week and get back on that trail of weight loss. I've been dropping pretty good. I got back down to like 199. I want to say about a month ago, and I've been just like slowly progressing up. So obviously, I'm letting one eating habit or one exercise habit get out of control. It's either I'm slacking off too much on exercise or I'm eating too much junk food. and given my diet as of late, I would probably say it was the latter. I do try and keep after my diet, but I'm not really aggressive on it. I just don't eat shit food. I make like burritos here. That's about as shitty as I get. But it's the contents that matter. So it'll be like chicken or eggs and salsa and some cheese. But nothing like really heavy starchy. So I don't put like rice or beans or anything like that in it. And that's usually a pretty filling, but not too much of a drag down. Like if you eat a lot of beef or even turkey, it's a little bit harder for your body to digest, takes a little more energy out of you. But yeah, so I don't know, I feel like I've just been slacking off a little bit. I haven't been on the treadmill as many times before class over this last week, although I did get a new mat, and it's not actually new. I got to defunkify it. But anyway, I picked up a nice 6x12 foot mat, and so I can get in a little extra warm up before I even go in. It's kind of nice to have around the house. As far as what we're going to get into today on subject matter, I don't want to cut it off too quick, because I did get Americana'd today. And it wasn't before I zipper choked him though. And he even had the advantage. We were doing positional sparring, and it was starting off with him in full mount on me, and I still managed to get out from his mount and and give him a nice little zipper choke. Zipper choke! But yeah, so he did get me in an Americana, though, so it was a little bit of revenge. When we switched places where I was on him, he managed to get me an Americana. I don't know how, but he did it. Kudos for him. No names. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into our first dance. And as far as where we're going to go, I don't necessarily want to start off with body count today. I mean, I love them a lot, but we've been doing that like almost a little too much. So let's go ahead and throw a little bit of Cavalier Conspiracy for our first dance, Inflicted, here on Coin Metal. And that was System of a Down with Psycho. And so, it's been a little bit psycho out there today. A lot of goofiness over the weekend. I noticed a distinct trend. And it seems like I'm falling into a lot of individuals on like Twitter and so on that are starting to really understand what I've been saying all this time concerning Bitcoin and fees and so on and so forth. But I got a whole bunch of stuff I want to get into today. In this first thing, I don't know, I'm just going by the title of it. I think it's kind of interesting, at least. And so this is on CoinDesk. It's by Michael J. Casey. It was authored June 3rd, 2019 at 4 UTC. Why Bitcoin's culture war matters. I don't know that there actually is a culture war, just a difference of opinions, but we'll explore this guy's thoughts. So yes, penis. Let's talk about Bitcoin, toxicity, and inclusiveness. Boy, my Twitter feed is going to have fun over the next few days. To start with, let me take a position. I stand with those people, especially women, who've lately been calling out maltreatment from members of the Bitcoin community and citing rude and abusive behavior as proof that community's lack of inclusiveness. Oh my mangina. These are people who believe in cryptocurrency's technology's potential but feel discouraged to believe that they belong to the community's dominant white male subculture. If this technology is to fulfill its global potential, the community associated with it must confront this problem. But the real point of this column is not just to defend these critics. It's to debunk one of the more common positions adopted by those who take issue with their complaints, particularly on Twitter. In doing so, I hope to emphasize just how important the concepts of, quote, community and culture are to the healthy development of crypto technology and the ecosystem growing around it. Hammer culture. The line that's most often thrown back at those calling out incivility is that Bitcoin is nothing more than a technology, a tool, and that it's meaningless to attach to it value judgments relating to human behavior. Bitcoin is amoral, apolitical, and acultural, the argument goes. And like any technology, it is used by good and bad people alike. These pundits, warning of a political correctness-based threat to free speech, will then advise that the injured party take issue directly with the bad actors, but refrain from agitating for community-wide change. A perfect example of the genre came from outspoken lawyer Preston Byrne. Bitcoin isn't inclusive enough. HTML isn't inclusive enough. Hammers aren't inclusive enough. These things are tools. Nobody stops you from using them. They are what you make of them. They're toxic only if you're toxic. Damn Skippy. That was me, by the way. Clever, yes, but it's extremely unhelpful because the examples given do not share equivalent terms of reference. Byrne's hammer refers solely to the steel implement that tradesmen use. By contrast, people complaining about Bitcoin are clearly using the word in a much wider context than in merely a reference to the code, to the ones and zeros that comprise the Bitcoin protocol. They are inherently talking about the wider ecosystem and community gathered around the idea of Bitcoin. So, let's equalize terms, shall we? We can turn each of these nouns into a modifier of the word community. While it might sound silly to talk about a hammer community, there may be groups of hammer-obsessed souls who debate questions of design and ease of use at meetups and in chat rooms. If so, I'm going to guess that community would probably also be predominantly male. But the real issue is that such a hammer community is going to be far less important to the future design and evolution of hammer technology than Bitcoin's community is to its. No, I'm no expert, but I don't see a great deal of change in hammer technology having occurred over the centuries, and I'm not sure people expect much in the future. Dude, you don't know shit about hammers. They've changed quite a bit, actually. As such, we don't see much jockeying among users to ensure that proposals for hammer upgrades are implemented and standardized to their preferred design. By contrast, the open source technology behind Bitcoin is in a constant state of evolution. It is by definition under development, which is why we talk about the engineers who work on it as, quote, developers, not custodians. As such, there is a constant battle of interests over who gets to modify the code. Exhibit A, the block size debate. Counter-arguing that those who don't like the process can just fork the code, as the large blockers did, and set up their own new community doesn't cut it for me. Bitcoin is the brand that matters. Now, fuck you. Any newcomer will struggle to achieve the same network effects. Secession just isn't viable for anyone who likes its current design but doesn't like how its future is being defined. Also, is there a hammer ecosystem? And I just want to take a pause and just kind of interject on that point. It wasn't that we didn't want to talk about it or that we just said, fuck you people. No. No, there was at least a year or so of debate about why aren't we doing this, because it's obvious that the fucking network is congested. Let's make the fucking blocks bigger. And Bitcoin Core said, go fork yourself. And so that's exactly what fucking happened. I don't like this bullshit that you're whitewashing it like, we just had a philosophical difference and so we're just going to go do this thing now. No, that's not what fucking happened at all. There was plenty of attempts to get Bitcoin Core to increase the block size. There were plenty of attempts. And they chose not to. So, like I said, I don't like this fucking whitewashing bullshit where you just delete damn near 2 years worth of people talking back and forth on Twitter and on Facebook and all other fucking social media about this subject matter. Now, I'm not even counting chat rooms, and I mean there were hundreds, if not thousands, of those containing people talking about this very subject. So again, cut it with the whitewash. It's a bunch of bullshit. Anyway, where are we? Also, is there a hammer ecosystem? Maybe, but beyond producers of nails and perhaps steel and rubber or wood suppliers, you can hardly call it a complex ecosystem. Bitcoin, by contrast, which purports to reinvent the global system of money, has attracted an inherently vast array of different technology providers, all of whom have competing interests in how it's designed, managed, and marketed to the world. I'm not just talking about businesses' applications built on top of it, but also the developments of related encryption, payment channel, smart contract, and other vitally important technologies, all of which are themselves in a constant state of flux. I'm guessing that the exhibition halls at Hammer conventions don't have quite the same spread of offerings as cryptocurrency events such as Consensus. I don't know, dude, have you ever been to a hardware expo? You might want to do that before you making that comment. Saying that Bitcoin is nothing but a tool is like saying that music is nothing but a system for ordering different audible tones. Money equals community. When Paul Vigna and I wrote The Age of Cryptocurrency, we spent a lot of time chronicling the emergence of the community that had formed around Bitcoin, which we saw as fundamental to its success. It struck us that the notion of a Bitcoin community was so prominent. The C word was always being bandied about, but because Bitcoin embodied a profound and sweeping social idea, it offered nothing less than a reinvention of money, a revolution in the entire system for coordinating human value exchange. Money only works to the extent that there is widespread belief in it, that people buy into its core myth. Money, Felix Martin says, is a social technology, by which he means that its functionality and its usability depend far less on the physical qualities of the token that represents it than on the collective agreement among large communities of people that their token captures, represents, and communicates transferable value. This is true whether we're talking about gold, dollar bills, entries in a bank account, or cryptocurrency. By extension, then, or for any form of money to succeed, it must sustain a vibrant, growing community. Communities equal culture. The thing about communities is that they inevitably develop cultures, and in self-defining their boundaries of belonging, they develop shared ways of seeing and language, akin to a kind of social protocol that regulate in a very unofficial and quite subconscious way their members' behavior. As they evolve, cultures can become more or less open, more or less inclusive, more or less abrasive in their treatment of outsiders, and inevitably these cultural features will either encourage or impede the growth of the community. All of this should hardly be a revelation. Anthropology, the study of culture, is a globally widespread and influential field, one that is now appropriately turning its attention to cryptocurrency communities. Studies of U.S. culture from Alexis de Tocqueville down have rightly pointed to the inclusiveness of the Founding Fathers' ideas as a key driver of its economic expansion. In fact, American culture is arguably its most important ingredient for success, a social manifestation of Joseph Nye's notion of the United States, quote, soft power. So yes, Bitcoin culture really, really matters. If the compelling ideas behind permissionless peer-to-peer exchange and censorship-resistant money that attract people of all stripes to it are to retain those people's interests and grow in influence, the Bitcoin community needs to evolve a more inclusive culture. The only way to do that is to spur the kind of open debates that have always driven the progress of human culture, those which shifted norms and mores to the point that it became acceptable to own slaves, to spit in public, or jump in a queue. So listen up, Bitcoin, it's time to confront your toxicity. Yeah, fuck you. I'm sorry, Michael. You might be new here, but the people that I've always involved myself with here in cryptocurrencies, or in the cryptosphere, as I've called it, they don't have a common sexuality. They don't have a common nationality. They don't have these limitations that you're talking about. There have always been women in the Verge community. Always. As a matter of fact, when we were still back in IRC and still Dogecoin Dark, there were women in the fucking IRC chat room. So, I don't even want to hear it. This bullshit about inclusion, it's like this. Do you include yourself in it? The vast majority of the people that I've met that farm cannabis are white males. Does that mean that the culture surrounding it is exclusively white males? No. There's nothing in the process of growing cannabis that limits the process to being white males that are producing it. I mean, I've met a pretty successful grower who's female. I got another friend on Facebook who's a female who's also a grower. But there these contradictions. I don't think it's a problem of inclusion, really. I think it's a problem of your perception, Michael. You're probably only seeing the white people because you yourself are white, and you've been conditioned to actually take note of the volume of white people in any community and say, and make some sort of judgment about its racial inclusiveness. Give me a break. There's only problems where you look for them, man. I mean, the community, though, surrounding cryptocurrencies has always been very contentious. And I think that the big problem here, Michael, is that a lot of people forget that we're talking about money. And everybody is interested in money, regardless of your genitalia, regardless of what you do with it. It's not anybody's business nor their concern. It's immaterial to the subject at hand, man. We're talking money, ducats, cash, dough, dinero. I could go off on money, but I mean, the point being that, it's not a matter of there's a culture war or whatever. There's people that disagree about certain implementations. There's people that disagree about certain coins and whether or not they have any value. And that's to be expected because, again, we're talking about money. There's all this jerking off with, what we can do with blockchain. Yeah, whatever, dude. If you don't have voluntary miners who are being incentivized to keep the shit straight, and they're completely independent of you, if you don't have those qualities, you don't have a blockchain. If you're instructing to them, you will run this implementation, then you don't have a blockchain. It's dependent upon you. Bitcoin has been running now for quite some time without Satoshi Nakamoto running around telling everybody, hey, you got to do it this way. That's why the idea of Craig Wright being Satoshi is fucking ridiculous to me. I mean, I've characterized the situation as like, Satoshi Nakamoto got in his car and he started driving down the road, and then he turned to the people in the back seat of the car and he says, hey, I'm gonna bail for a few. I'll talk to y'all later. And then ejects himself out of the door, and then comes back to the side of the wreck and says, "Oh, shucky darn, you should have turned left." Completely fucking lunacy, And this guy, one guy responded, that something or other, and I responded, if I had the opportunity to grab the wheel before we careened off a cliff, I'd turn it around and run the motherfucker over with it. And somebody responded that that's pretty much what happened to Craig Wright. Or at least Satoshi. Yeah, Craig Wright, I would say. Not Satoshi. The cultural limitations that this guy's talking about, they're all perceptual. Man, when you get in any deep conversation between two people that are interested in cryptocurrencies, that even own some cryptocurrency or maybe even trade some, they don't have this big conceptual error that you have, that Bitcoin is the only thing. This movement, what's happening here in cryptocurrencies is so much bigger than just Bitcoin. The idea that a group of us dispersed throughout the globe could come together and create a network and transact monetary value over it on consumer grade hardware is so fucking mind blowing in and of itself. Because we've been able to do that since 2009. And we were probably able to do it before then, but nobody thought to do it before then. But the point being that consumer hardware circa 2009 was all that was necessary in order to get this to work. Here we are in 2019, 10 years later, We have way faster, way better hardware now. So when I think back on it, I'm like, okay, I could be depressed about Bitcoin being taken over by miners that are run by IBM or Bank of America or something. I could get depressed about that. Or I could remember that if it ever got that far away from us, the people that started it, the people that were first involved in it, if it ever got that far away from us, we could just do it again. And maybe go a little darker this time, Stay in the deep web and all that. Until, it's kind of obvious that the monetary value is no longer on the Bitcoin table. It's going somewhere else. You might want to pay attention to it. That's what I think is happening within cryptocurrencies. When we're talking about institutional investors coming in and whatnot, is they're looking at where the monetary value is going, what the monetary flow looks like. And when they're seeing, dollars and cents, and then tens of dollars, and then hundreds of dollars, and then thousands of dollars at a time, even being dedicated to cryptocurrency investment, it's like, okay, what the hell's going on here, man? That's, for every one of those dollars that's going into cryptocurrencies, that's 1,000 fucking dependencies that aren't covered for that $1, because of fractional reserve and all that business. And see, I've always talked about it in terms of that value, that monetary value, even though it gets kind of like it in the current fiat system, it's like they're in a big race to suck the value out from one another, or from under one another, And in cryptocurrency, it encapsulates it and it puts it in your hands. So it's not on anybody else's balance sheets. They can't look at that volume in accumulation with the volume of all their other customers and say, hey, check out this fund that we have. We're going to collateralize it, and we're going to sell you guys shares of it, based on its current value. We're expecting it's going to go up by 15% next year. You want to cut of that action or what? Nobody can do that with your money. It's in your wallet. It's not on anybody else's balance sheets but yours. And so nobody else can account for it. Nobody else can borrow against it. And this is why the idea of custodial wallets with your Bitcoin is fuck that shit. Because it just puts your monetary value back in that same situation where they create another vehicle that they're trading somewhere else, and then you're not part of the action. You're the hodler. You're hodling. But you're not part of the big dynamic action that's going on. And see, personally, I think it's going on between stablecoins, the issuers of stablecoins, and the rest of the Bitcoin market, or the rest of the cryptocurrency market, where they're working out their private exchange rates, and they're not including the rest of us in the trade. They don't feel our demand. Because again, they're trading in an abstraction of the value that we're trading against, or that we're trading. But anyway, that was just one little diversion I wanted to get off on, because this illusion that these divisions actually exist in these communities is just that. It's an illusion. I will admit, though, the vast majority of the crypto media that we read on this show, we read it because it's available, but the fact of the matter is that most of it is couched in this ideation that you aren't where all of this comes from, that you're not the creator of the value. If you didn't value these things, you wouldn't even be listening to this show. You wouldn't even be holding any cryptocurrency at all. You don't have any interest in it. Why? Why would you hold it? Why would you even bother? Anyway, I got this next one here. And this is another illusion that just doesn't seem to want to go away. or fascination, I should say. It's not so much an illusion, just a fascination, I guess. It's on investinblockchain.com. New evidence suggests that Satoshi Nakamoto is Paul Satoshi, my apologies, the creator of encryption software E4M and TrueCrypt. And this is by Jeremy Wall. It was authored approximately 9 hours ago. So here we go. Paul Satoshi Calder LaRue, a 46-year-old criminal mastermind, is the creator of encryption software E4M and TrueCrypt, the cryptography encryption software Satoshi Nakamoto likely used to lock up his 1 million Bitcoin, and author of an uncannily similar manifesto to the one in Bitcoin's white paper in 1998. But that's not all. Paul Satoshi Calder LaRue employs similar spelling and language in his writing style to that of Satoshi. He's interested in gambling. Bitcoin's initial code had a poker client included. And what's more, he's been in jail since 2012. That's probably the reason why his 1 million Bitcoin hasn't moved. On top of that, the documents included in this article show a connection of Craig Wright to Paul Satoshi. Sounds like a 007 movie? Let's start from the beginning. The identity of Satoshi Nakamoto, the pseudonymous and enigmatic creator of Bitcoin, is perhaps the most enduring mystery of modern times. It's long been speculated as to who he, she, or they are, but to no avail. The long-standing mystery remains. There have been a number of theories and candidates as to who Nakamoto really is, some of whom are even self-nominated, like Craig Wright, the man known as Faketoshi for his bold claims. Wright has courted controversy by claiming that to be the creator of Bitcoin, which has led to multiple lawsuits and court hearings. One such court case, Keiman versus Wright, has surfaced new evidence in the form of a Wikipedia page, which was not redacted, which, oddly enough, points to a new Satoshi candidate, and it's not Wright. The newfound Satoshi candidate is Paul Satoshi Calder LaRue, a 46-year-old former cartel boss, drug smuggler, arms dealer, informant to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Agency, and genius programmer. As seen from LaRue's Wikipedia page, the man lived an eventful life with a career that included gold smuggling, precious metals mining, logging, land deals, drugs, and arms trafficking, money laundering, assassinations, encryption software development, and more. Also stated on LaRue's Wikipedia page, LaRue is currently in U.S. custody for ordering the assassinations of 6 people. Some readers may be familiar with LaRue's life story, as it was presented in a series on Atavist, along with a book called The Mastermind. An excerpt summarizing the publications states, quote, "He was a brilliant programmer and a vicious cartel boss who became a prized U.S. government asset." Apart from LaRue's life as a cartel boss, he was also a brilliant programmer who created E4M, an open-source free Windows disk encryption software program, in 1999. As well, he is also suspected to be the creator of the open-source TrueCrypt disk cryptography package, which is based on E4M's code. How did a man of this nature, with an extensive criminal background and some impressive programming contributions under his belt, come to be tied with Craig Wright's court case and suspected to be Satoshi Nakamoto? Let's dive into the new evidence. The Keiman versus Wright lawsuit and ties pointing to Paul LaRue. Self-proclaimed Satoshi Craig Wright is being sued by the Keiman family, or Kleiman rather, on accusations that Wright defrauded and stole over $11 billion worth of Bitcoin and hard drives from the now deceased Dave Kleiman, a noted computer forensics expert who's suspected by some to be Satoshi Nakamoto. Wright and Keiman were business partners until Keiman died in 2013. The lawsuit that's unfolding in Florida courts has been filled with bizarre theories, misdirections, forgeries, and mistruths, which were often presented by the defendant, Dr. Wright. Among the bizarre things brought forth by Wright is Document 187, Dr. Craig Wright's motion for protective order. According to Wright, some of the evidence that supports that he is Satoshi and that the $11 billion worth of Bitcoin is his own includes sensitive information about his ties to criminals and his involvement in their apprehension and incarceration. Oh my God. Therefore, Document 187 has been redacted so that the criminals included in the document would not learn of Wright's involvement with their arrests and seek repercussions against him. However, unfortunately for Wright, whoever was redacting the document failed to black out one of the corresponding footnotes that identifies the criminal kingpin in question, Paul LaRue. As seen in the footnotes above, a partial URL is visible that leads to a Daily Mail article that calls LaRue, quote, a real-life Bond villain behind a cocaine and gun empire spanning 4 continents who's now turned super snitch. Also, the unredacted footnote clearly contains a link to Paul LaRue's Wikipedia page, indicating that LaRue may very well be one of the criminals that Wright is afraid of repercussions from. The ultimate theory that Paul LaRue is Satoshi Nakamoto and Craig Wright's role in all of it. With the public release of Document 187, it's now being suggested that Paul LaRue may be Satoshi Nakamoto and that Wright is in possession of encrypted hard drives containing LaRue's stash of the famously stationary 1 million Bitcoin. But how does Craig Wright, Dave Keiman, and Paul LaRue all fit into this perplexing conspiracy theory? Per Document 187 and the unredacted information about LaRue, there is strong assumption that LaRue is the unnamed individual that Wright talks about in the document. Therefore, information outlaid in the document combined with some theorization suggests that Wright was an employee of LaRue and also an informant who helped bring him down in 2012. Following his presumed trail of events, one anonymous Redditor suggests that Wright and his longtime friend and business partner Dave Keiman managed to get their hands on LaRue's encrypted hard drives that hold the 1 million Bitcoin. However, unfortunately for Wright, all of LaRue's coins are locked away in secure TrueCrypt volumes, the cryptography encryption software suspected to be developed by LaRue. Wright has spent years trying to crack these hard drives, but with no success, which is why he has yet to prove he is Satoshi. Adding to the conspiracy theory, Wright's close friend Calvin Ayre has set up warehouses of computers to try and crack the encrypted hard drive's code, disguising them as a cryptocurrency mining farm, meaning his mining activity is simply a front to make these massive data centers look legitimate. Therefore, according to this bewildering yet entirely possible theory, the reason Wright is setting himself as the real Satoshi is so that when he finally cracks the encrypted hard drives and gains access to the 1 million Bitcoin, he can attempt to legitimately sell them off. The image above is a document from the Keiman v. Wright case and presents claims from Wright, where he states that he's in possession of Keiman's TrueCrypt files that contain his stored Bitcoin. According to Wright, it may be possible to crack the code within 5 to 10 years. All in all, it has been speculated that the TrueCrypt files Wright is in possession of are not Keiman's, but in fact LaRue's. We understand that this is... Let's actually read this part here. This is the excerpt, I guess this is from Reddit. I have files of Dave's that I cannot access now. These are TrueCrypt partitions. We held backups for for the other, but no passwords. I cannot access these. If I cannot find a key or password on these, I do not believe that I can on yours. Dave is smarter than I was in some ways. He broke his wallets into many 50 Bitcoin-sized addresses. I left several large addresses that are not easy to move without making the world notice. Dave's estate is only worth $12 million if you want to cash out right now. If you want to stay, you get the value and the shares. I will list these in coming years, and then they are worth more. And then I guess this is a response or something. There's a trust, as I noted. Less than 200,000 Bitcoin remain. We need 100,000 to make the bank idea work. I cannot touch these yet, even if I want to, and right now I do. That stated, I will not move more now in any event. Dave held more, and Mt. Gox held some. I see both of these sources as lost. Dave's drives are a one day possible. Each year it is possible to crack more than double the key length that was previously possible. What I know of Dave's password places them around 80 bits. We can expect them to be worth trying to crack in 10 to 12 years. Spending the next 5 years on this is going to cover about 5 to 10% of the possibilities at a large cost. This is how crypto works. The image above is a document in the Keiman v. Wright case, and presents claims from Wright, where he states that he's in possession of Keiman's TrueCrypt files that contain his stored Bitcoin. According to Wright, it may be possible to crack the code within 5 to 10 years. All in all, it has been speculated that the TrueCrypt files Wright is in possession are not Keiman's, but in fact LaRue's. We understand that this is a lot to take in, and you probably still have doubts and many questions, which is completely understandable. This is a perplexing theory, but upon closer inspection, there are a lot of parallels between Paul LaRue and what's known about Satoshi Nakamoto. Apart from the allegations of Wright's association with LaRue, there are numerous curious coincidences that support the case that the criminal mastermind LaRue is Satoshi. Number 1. Paul LaRue's alias is Satoshi Calder LaRue. In one of the many passports LaRue owned, he goes by the name Satoshi, which sounds extremely similar to Satoshi. Number 2. LaRue is a brilliant programmer and familiar with C++, and so is Satoshi. Before LaRue was known to be involved in an array of criminal endeavors, he was a brilliant programmer with an obsession for cryptography and privacy, much like Satoshi Nakamoto. As previously mentioned, in 1997, he began working on E4M, encryption for the masses. Make an adjustment here. Where's that? Moreover, LaRue's published a kind of manifesto that expresses ideas strikingly similar to those of Satoshi Nakamoto, explained in Wikipedia. In the politics section of the E4M website, LaRue published a kind of manifesto stating that governments are increasingly relying on electronic data gathering, citing projects such as Echelon, linked to the 5 nation-states which would become known as the Five Eyes. More than a decade later, he stated that encryption is the only way to preserve civil liberties. At the end of LaRue's manifesto, he states, quote, "Strong encryption is the mechanism with which to combat these intrusions, preserve your rights, and guarantee your freedom into the information age and beyond." Number 3. LaRue is suspected to have developed TrueCrypt, the encryption software protecting Satoshi Nakamoto's 1 million Bitcoin. Satoshi Nakamoto's 1 million Bitcoin are allegedly locked away in secure TrueCrypt volumes, encryption software that's based on E4M's code. LaRue is highly suspected to have been a part of the team of anonymous developers called the TrueCrypt team. This suspicion is compelling because some of LaRue's former colleagues believed he had worked on it, but they couldn't find any corroborating evidence, so it still remains a mystery. All in all, if anyone could have hidden wallets containing 1 million Bitcoin, it would have been the creator of disk encryption software TrueCrypt. Number 4. Satoshi's disappearance lines up with LaRue's new endeavors. Satoshi disappeared in early 2011 to, quote, move on to other things. Around the same time, LaRue transitioned from his field of software development to cartel boss. During this time, he experienced disruptions with his illegal global pharmaceutical business, RX Limited, when the U.S. government and DEA restricted distribution. As stated from LaRue's Wikipedia page, quote, around 2011, LaRue began to disappear for long periods of time, with none of his employees knowing his whereabouts. As U.S. authorities were closing in on him, LaRue took up temporary residence in Rio de Janeiro and planned to move there. LaRue's disappearance and need to lie low coincides with Satoshi's disappearance, indicating yet another strong parallel between the two. Number 5. A curious post from 2002, 7 years before Bitcoin was created, may have been written by LaRue. In a forum post from 2002, 7 years before Bitcoin was released, somebody posted something that sounds an awful lot like an early idea of Bitcoin. Virtual peer-to-peer banking. I had this idea of a future with virtual peer-to-peer banking, a kind of decentralized and secure ecosystem. Gone would be times that governments and banks can track and interfere with our money transfers, or even interfere with the total amount of money on Earth. My envisioned system would have a fixed total amount of money, but each monetary unit, say virtual coin, is divisible indefinitely. Indefinitely. So a kind of deflation would replace inflation. The total value of money in the world would be a fixed number. It poses no problem for liquidity because that currency can be divided any time. However, many people will not spend their money much because its value will increase often. Other problems raise in the areas of security, malicious use, how to come towards such a system from current systems. These are just ideas. I'd like to hear comments or about net resources on this subject. Is that you, Satoshi? It's been long speculated that Satoshi himself wrote this post before actually creating Bitcoin 7 years later. Even more interesting, the IP address of the author has supposedly been traced to the Netherlands, a country where LaRue is known to have once lived. More parallels suggesting LaRue is Satoshi. Number 1. Both were wary of authority. LaRue expressed this in his E4M manifesto, and Satoshi expressed this in his Bitcoin white paper. Number 2. Both had an interest in online gambling. LaRue is known to have participated in online gambling activities, and Bitcoin's initial code had a poker client included. Number 3. Both understood that a new digital payment system was needed to improve on the difficulties of the traditional payment systems. LaRue dealt with clunky online payments in his online prescription drug market, and Satoshi expressed understanding of payments in the Bitcoin white paper. Number 4. Both used similar spelling and language. Analyze, color, defense, bloody, hard. Number 5. LaRue was a multi-millionaire, if not billionaire, and as such wouldn't have needed to cash out his Bitcoin once the price began rising. Is Paul Solanci, my apologies there, Calder LaRue Satoshi Nakamoto. Despite all of the surface evidence that suggests that LaRue could be Satoshi Nakamoto, there are still reasons to believe this is not the case. For example, in 2009, when Satoshi was refining Bitcoin, LaRue was already establishing himself as a cartel boss and is known to have been drug smuggling and gun running. How would Satoshi be able to do all of this while also starting a forum and answering noobs' questions about Bitcoin? Therefore, one could argue that Wright's claim to an association with LaRue are completely fabricated in an effort to show that he was connected with the origins of Bitcoin. After all, Wright doesn't have the best reputation in the crypto space, and few, aside from Calvin Ayre, believe a word he says, including claims that he created Bitcoin and is Satoshi Nakamoto. Therefore, everything Wright says must be rigorously fact-checked and treated with caution. However, if Wright's dubious connections with LaRue is true, and Satoshi is in fact Satoshi, it would be one of the most incredible stories ever told, and Quentin Tarantino would already be jumping on the film rights. Yeah. I don't know, I'm not terribly compelled to believe this guy is actually Satoshi, but I don't know. I don't know. I thought it was interesting, though, that I guess Craig has some files that he's trying to crack. That's really interesting. Wouldn't it be funny if he did actually have those TrueCrypt files that had the wallets in them, and he got access to them? I mean, could you imagine? He cashes out like 1,000 of those Bitcoin. Oh my God, it would cause a fucking like a seismic event in the cryptosphere. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music, and I'm feeling the need for some Slipknot. So here it is, Everything Ends, here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with Whose Fist Is This Anyway? And so, we got one side of it, but I found another side of it. And I thought this one was kind of compelling because, you know, it seemed to be along the same subject matter, basically. Yeah. Anyway, so I got this thing, it's on reddit.com. The unanimous opinion is no. He's not Satoshi Nakamoto. Elaine Shannon, writer of Hunting LaRue. I was very curious about the past days' rumors that Paul Calder LaRue having a chance at being Satoshi, and I read Elaine Shannon's book, so I figured she'd be the preeminent expert on the subject. I was also expecting a short reply. I just used the Contact Me page on her website and was astounded to get this reply. Thanks again to her for taking the time to write it. It's shared with her permission, and I'll direct her to this thread so that maybe she can answer questions if she has time under her own account. I can't wait for Michael Mann's movie. The original question was something along the lines of, quote, do you think that LaRue could be Satoshi because of the timelines matching up roughly with the same time Satoshi disappeared and that LaRue was arrested? Also, their backgrounds in cryptography, E4M/TrueCrypt/ etc. Elaine's response. Thank you for writing me. I agree that it's fun to speculate about Paul LaRue and what a man with his brainpower would make of cryptocurrency, the dark web, and all sorts of marriages of technology and crime. But if you've read Hunting LaRue, you know that I've had extensive and in some cases exclusive access to several people who knew Paul LaRue as well as anyone can. I've concentrated on exploring his character as they observed him at close range. Since that theory came out, I've contacted all of them. The unanimous opinion is no, he's not Satoshi Nakamoto. As I mentioned in my Twitter feed, He didn't have the necessary time to spend experimenting with the project, whose money-making potential was uncertain at best. In the 1990s, he was hustling hard. He published E4M in 1998 as a means of advertising his skills, but he was also chasing IT jobs on several continents and looking to get married again. From 1999 to 2002, he was working long hours as CTO of SecureStar, a cybersecurity venture set up by Winfried Hafner, LaRue's mentor at the time. Hafner was close to LaRue, but fired him in 2002 when he discovered that LaRue had pilfered and sold a valuable string of code developed by others in the company to operate security devices called crypto tokens. After that, LaRue went off to make his fortune, and LaRue founded RX Limited as a startup internet commerce pharmaceutical sales venture in 2004. His sites brought in $300 million in sales between 2007 and 2011, according to a DEA analysis. He never asked for payment in Bitcoin or offered to pay for anything in Bitcoin, as far as my sources know. He always took payment for pharmaceuticals in the form of credit card charges, usually Visa. He considered setting up his own bank and Visa franchise. For darker deeds, he wanted cash or gold bars. Iran paid him for an explosives formula with $5 million in gold bars. Wow. In 2009, when Bitcoin emerged, he was busy launching multiple ventures. As I detailed in Hunting LaRue, among these were small arms sales, trading in hard drugs, trading in smuggled gold, building a submarine, devising a new missile navigation system for Iran, and setting up a new base in Somalia, where he intended to make himself into a white warlord, expanding his arms business into an Amazon for arms platform with fortified bases, his own militia, barracks, warehouses for arms, an airstrip, a seaport, and so on. Significantly, he discovered oil on the land he controlled, but declined to drill it, saying it would take too long to turn a profit. To sum up, several associations say he might have had the intellectual skills to participate in the invention of cryptocurrency, but he didn't have the resolve, patience, passion for that particular kind of secrecy or collaborative bent necessary to pull off such a feat. He was a man in a hurry for guaranteed results fast, and he dropped a series of ideas that wouldn't deliver huge returns. He was a loner with no real friends and business partners. There's a reason he demanded to be called boss and regularly threatened to kill his senior lieutenants. However, no one discounts the possibility that he might be thinking of a new way to mine cryptocurrency or to game the system. He is in a federal facility awaiting sentence and has a lot of time on his hands. And this is by Elaine Shannon, journalist and author of Hunting LaRue and other works. So yeah, no penis. Just so we're clear on that one. So there we have it. All of LaRue's associates that she had contact with say that LaRue couldn't be Satoshi. And so the ball is in play again. I don't know. I have refrained from making any real speculations on it because I don't know anything about LaRue, for one thing. But my feeling on Satoshi is that he's still out there. If he isn't dead or in jail, those are the three options: dead, in jail on something else, or maybe detained somewhere. But I don't think so. I think he left at the right time. When one of his associates had notified him that he had been in contact with the CIA, of all entities. It's like, yeah, dude, we're done. See ya. That'd be my reaction to the whole situation. I'd immediately lose my phone and start making other plans for the rest of my life. Which, apparently that's what Satoshi did. But yeah, it's fanciful to think about who he is, but in all honesty, it's not really important who Satoshi Nakamoto is, especially not now, a decade later. Now, whether or not LaRue had any participation in the genesis of Bitcoin, maybe, but I don't think he was Satoshi Nakamoto. I don't think Craig Wright is either, so I think there's a higher likelihood that it was Hal Finney or possibly Dave Keiman. So, but yeah, that, and it's really funny that this came from a female, considering where we started on this thing. I think that's somebody's effort to create some sort of division within the cryptocurrency community. I mean, it's always been fractured. There have always been people that are very passionate about things, but again, it's because this is money. You know, I don't know how to communicate that enough. I mean, really, I witnessed several people go from flipping burgers to not flipping burgers anymore due to cryptocurrency. And to me, that's just like a miracle. It didn't require anybody dying. It didn't require anybody overdosing on drugs. Of course, some people got wrecked, but that happens in finance anyway. So I mean, it's not something that happens specifically and solely in cryptocurrency, you know. But speaking of, I got this article here on ccn.com, and just the title of it makes me laugh. $100 billion SoftBank fund flops after CEO exposes monster Bitcoin loss. Shit. This is by Ian Bezic, and it was the 3rd of June 2019. No indication of time or time zone. Shame on you, Ian. But yes, penis. Just months ago, Japanese tech behemoth SoftBank was on top of the world, and CEO Masayoshi Son added $5 billion to his net worth following a well-timed stock buyback program. But futures have turned for SoftBank and Mr. Son. SoftBank stock has slumped nearly 20% since its April highs. Its Uber investment is looking shaky, and new fundraising efforts are failing. Meanwhile, Mr. Sun revealed his monstrous losses from a disastrous Bitcoin bet. Must have bought at the peak. In April, CCN reported on Sun's brief but regrettable investment in Bitcoin, writing that, quote, "It is not known exactly how much Masayoshi-san, worth an estimated $24 billion, poured into Bitcoin, but he appears to have bought in late 2017 as the Bitcoin price approached a record high of $20,000. He sold early in 2018 as the price collapsed, taking a $130 million loss." Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. For someone worth $24 billion, a $130 million hit isn't the end of the world, but even for him, it's not chump change, and unfortunately, Sun and SoftBank may face worse losses in the future. SoftBank's strategy, buy high, sell low. Sun's Bitcoin trading could be an ominous warning of what's to come. That's because SoftBank is heavily invested in a bunch of tech unicorns that are losing enormous sums of money. For example, SoftBank has a massive stake in the controversial WeWork co-working space company. The New York Times reported on SoftBank's latest capital infusion into the company. Quote, "The latest investment, which is coming from SoftBank itself, is not nearly The latest investment, which is coming from SoftBank itself, not its nearly $100 billion vision fund, values WeWork at $47 billion and brings SoftBank's total investment in WeWork to about $10.5 billion, they said. Ominously, the article noted that SoftBank was looking at putting as much as $16 billion into WeWork, but scaled it back to just $2 billion. Still, with more than $10 billion committed to WeWork, Mr. Sun has a big problem if the company crashes and burns, as some expect. WeWork isn't SoftBank's only troubled investment. They invested heavily in Uber after its valuation had already soared. SoftBank was looking at doubling its money on the Uber IPO. Instead, the IPO price plummeted, taking SoftBank's potential gains with it. If Uber's rocky ride continues, SoftBank could instead end up with large losses on Uber and the company's other ride-hailing services, such as China's Didi Chuxing. My apologies, sir. If that wasn't enough, SoftBank also put $1 billion into Wirecard, a German company who has been accused of fraud and whose shares slumped 9% on Friday. Investors reject SoftBank's new $100 billion tech fund. This all comes at an inconvenient time for SoftBank. They are out there marketing for their Vision 2 fund, which intends to invest $100 billion in tech startups, but with Uber struggling and WeWork looking like a fiasco in the making, investors have lost interest. The Wall Street Journal reported that the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund declined to invest in the Vision Fund 2. It's a huge blow, as Saudi Arabia was a leading backer of the original Vision Fund, ponying up $45 billion. Other high-profile names such as Canada Pension Plan Investment Board also want nothing to do with Vision Fund 2. Meltem Demirors, Chief Strategic Officer at CoinShares, wondered what SoftBank's grand strategy is and decided trouble could be coming. SoftBank's Vision Fund is a fascinating experiment in financial engineering. Number 1, deploy $100 billion in 2 years. Number 2, mark up your rounds. Number 3, margin your private portfolio to return principal to investors. Number 4, raise a new $100 billion fund immediately. Number 5, what's next and what does it show us? It's got a link here. Let's check it out. What is it? SoftBank's fund looked like it could borrow $4 billion against tech stakes. That's interesting. In theory, SoftBank could cough up much of the money for the fund itself, but its balance sheet is loaded with debt, and the company's plan to sell its Sprint business to T-Mobile are under fire due to antitrust concerns. The DOJ's new crackdown on Google shows that the government is getting serious about fighting monopolies. Mayoshi Son is ambitious, but can he execute? Mr. Sun has huge plans. For example, he's one of the leading futurists out there, along with Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg. But like Mr. Musk, Sun might want to spend a little more time focusing on his business dealings before getting lost in the stars. Investor patience is running thin. And quote, nobody wants to fund these zombie companies anymore. SoftBank next to be killed. If they invest only in money-losing companies and now they had to margin call on Uber, yeah, that's not good signs, man. So there you have it. Somebody had to buy that $20,000 peak, and apparently it was Mr. Sun. You know, for every winner there is a loser, and that's just a reality of investing. You can't get around it. But you know, you can try not to kill your losers. Yeah, it's very sad to me. I mean, this sounds like this guy is basically trying to ride other people's coattails because he really has no plans of his own. And that's not really a position you want to be putting your money in, you know? I mean, especially if you're talking about long-term investments. You know, they were talking about pension fund organizations. Give me a break, man. This is people's fucking retirement. We've already seen this before. We saw it with the fucking savings and loan scandal back in the 80s. You know, we saw it with the tech boom of the 90s. You know, the internet boom of the 90s. We saw it again in 2008 with the housing bubble. And every time it takes out large swaths of people's retirement plans. You know, it did the same to my dad. You know, he worked his whole life, developed a half-decent portfolio, and then put it in the wrong hands, apparently, and they fucked up with it. You know, I mean, that to me is just, it's like, it's very, very sad. You know, that people dedicate their lives to building a little bit of wealth and have it just snatched out from under them. It's fucking bullshit, man. Anyway, apparently it's not limited. I got this thing on zerohedge.com. It begins. Multi-billion-dollar hedge fund blocks redemptions. This is by Tyler Durden, 3rd of June 2019 at 17:37 hours. No indication of time zone. Shame on you, Tyler. But yes, penis. In a moment of financial serendipity earlier today, we treated that as a result of the sudden collapse in the market's most crowded positions, which, as we noted over the weekend, now face the biggest risk of a wipeout, hedge fund redemption requests reemerge. And just like that, hedge fund redemption requests reemerged. That was Zero Hedge, June 3rd, 2019. It turns out that we were very much spot on because just a few hours later, the Financial Times reported that Neil Woodford, the UK's equivalent of David Tepper, has blocked redemptions from his $3.7 billion equity income fund after serial underperformance led to investor exodus. Quote, inflicting a serious blow to the reputation of the UK's highest profile fund manager. The freeze on redemptions exactly 5 years after Woodford opened his eponymous I gotta figure that word out. Fund management group underlines his increasingly precarious position. It follows a steady stream of investor outflows which have occurred each month for 2 years, with the fund shrinking by 2/3 to $3.7 billion since a peak of $10.2 billion in May of 2017. The severity of this latest hit to the hedge fund industry cannot be underscored enough. The FT quoted a veteran fund manager who has known Woodford for more than 20 years, who said, quote, "This is one of the bigger events for the UK asset management industry of the last decade, a bonfire of reputation and a terrible moment for investor confidence." The freeze, also known as a redemption gate, which usually is implemented during times of market turmoil to avoid a catastrophic liquidation of assets as investors panicked, was introduced after Kent County Council, a long-standing backer of Woodford since his days as a star fund manager at Invesco Perpetual, asked for the return of approximately $250 million. While the freeze prevents the withdrawal of capital over the short term, it also stops new investors from putting money into the fund. In a statement, Woodford Investment Management said it had come to the conclusion that it is in the best interest of all investors in the fund to suspend the issue, cancellation, sale, redemption, and transfer of shares in the fund. It also said that it was taking a step to, quote, protect the investors in the fund by giving Woodford time to sell unlisted and illiquid stocks and buy more liquid investments that could be sold to meet redemptions. The massive redemption request capped a 4-week period in which, quote, Woodford had struggled to keep up with an average of $10 million flowing out of the fund every business day. Adding insult to injury, the shares of construction group Kier, one of the fund's main holdings, plunged 40% after a profit warning on Monday. What it really meant is that it was on the verge of collapse, and any further redemptions would merely accelerate the fund's liquidation, resulting in a potentially systemic collapse. The gating of the fund is reminiscent of the action taken by UK property funds in the wake of the UK's Brexit vote, when funds, including Standard Life, froze redemptions to stem the exodus of money. According to the FT, Link, Woodford's authorized fund manager, must review the fund suspension every 28 days and inform the Financial Conduct Authority of the results of the review. In reality, discussions with the FCA are likely to take place more frequently, especially as investors and other funds once again freak out wondering what the hell is going on. Speaking of the UK's top financial regulator, the FCA said it was, quote, aware of this situation and in contact with the firms involved to ensure that actions undertaken are in the best interests of all the fund's investors. In a statement, Woodford Investment Management said it had, quote, come to the conclusion that it is in the best interests of all investors in the fund to suspend the issue, cancellation, sale, redemption, and transfers of shares in the fund. It said it was taking the step to, quote, protect the investors in the fund by giving Woodward time to sell we already read that part. Woodford's fund said it would write to investors when dealing what was to be resumed and keep them informed about suspension, including its likely duration. Last week, the Financial Times revealed that Woodford's flagship equity income fund shrank by $560 million in less than 4 weeks. The company has also undertaken a series of complex deals in order to reduce the balance of illiquid, unquoted holdings in his open-ended funds, which have proved contentious as investors have tried to exit the vehicle. The decision to gate investors would immediately have far-reaching consequences on the UK asset management ecosystem. Hargreaves Lansdowne, the UK's largest, quote, fund supermarket and huge supporter of Woodford, said it would be removing both Woodford Equity Income as well as Woodford Income Focus from its Best Buy Wealth 50 list, and in a blow to the manager, which assures further redemptions when the fund resumes trading, putting its survival into question. The decision also reveals signs of contagion with Woodford's other funds. His $500 million income focus fund, designed to deliver high income, has not stopped trading but lost almost 20% in the past 12 months in total returns. Worse, the investors now barred from pulling their money from one of the largest funds, they will now scramble to redeem whatever they still have access to, creating a toxic spiral which will likely culminate with the fund's termination. Indicatively, Hargreaves accounts for $2 billion of Woodford's total $10 billion fund in assets under management, a number which will shortly be far smaller, and promotes his flagship fund, its Wealth 50 list, which is used as a resource for customers choosing which funds to buy. Quote, the company is also in talks with the UK financial regulator, Mr. Woodford, and the fund administrator. The administrator will now set a price for the suspended fund, which appears in 6 of Hargreaves' own portfolios and which will continue trading during the suspension. Mark Dampier, head of research at Hargreaves, said, quote, "It can't stay on the Wealth 50 if it is no longer trading." Putting it mildly, Emma Wall, head of investment analysis at Hargreaves Lansdowne, said, quote, "We are advocates of long-term investing and think Woodward's multi-decade track record remains compelling. But we don't underestimate the disappointment investors must feel with Woodward's recent performance." But what is most bizarre about this latest hedge fund fiasco is that the gating takes place with global markets just shy of all-time highs. One can only imagine what will happen to the rest of the sector if the current swoon accelerates and drops another 5 or 10% or more, sending other hedge funds scrambling to liquidate their own holdings of the most crowded stocks. Those who succeed to sell first, they just may survive to fight another day. But the bigger concern is whether this gating by one of UK's most iconic hedge funds sparks a redemption frenzy, first in England and then across the globe, in what may soon become a rerun of the redemption panic that struck in December, resulting in the first S&P bear market since the financial crisis. Only this time, we doubt the market will recover just minutes after triggering the infamous 20% threshold. Yeah, I think it'll be kind of exciting. Now let's check the comments really quick on this. Oh shit, there's 218. We're not going to cover all of them, just a few. ADB says, Hargreaves Lansdowne, the UK's largest fund supermarket and a huge supporter of Woodford, said it would be removing both Woodford Equity Income as well as Woodford Income Focus from its Best Buy 50 list. A bit freaking late for that. What a clown show the financial industry is. Damn Skippy, ADB. You know, and it's funny, these are the same people that bitch about regulatory clarity in cryptocurrencies. It's not like they want to know it for any other reason but to figure out exactly when to exit the scam. Yeah, let's see here. Looking for one of health here. Not a Troll says, I don't know a huge deal about investing, but I imagine that the highest levels of the economy is just a room full of people kind of looking around nervously at each other and wondering whether or not they've fucked up, and if so, how badly they fucked up. Yeah, man, that sounds about the long and short of it right there. I'm sure somebody has fucked up. Somebody dipped into the fund too much and, snorted it up their nose or gave it to a hooker, or maybe both. And maybe just too much. I don't know. But, this is one of those things where, the money is always safest in your hands. And these managers, it doesn't matter who the manager is, what the assets are. They are always going to look out for themselves first, their friends next, and you last. And they have to have friends, because that's how they get the tips that get them rich, that supposedly you can get rich on too. But that's the order of operations. It's me, my friends, and then you. So, I mean, the idea that you're going to get first cut or even best cut, dream again, kid. Dream again. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And I'm feeling some need for Pantera. Of all things, Pantera is just, it's hitting me. And so here it is. Cowboys from Hell. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Nothing Face with The Same Solution. Anyway, I got a couple more I think we can squeeze in before the closeout. At least one more. We have something to talk about closing out. But yeah, I saw this one, and I think I've said this multiple times about quote-unquote blockchain projects, that they're most likely going to fail, or at least a lot of them are. And I got this article here on Cointelegraph.com. This is by Thomas Sims. So yes, penis. Gartner, blockchain tech used by enterprises at risk of becoming obsolete within 18 months. Research firm Gartner has warned that 90% of the blockchain technology used by enterprises will need to be replaced within the next 18 months. Tech site IT Pro reported on... You know what? We're going to go there. Fuck these people. Sorry. Oh, fucking Christ. These people and their fucking ad blocker bullshit. Block your ad blocker so we can stuff shit in your face. There. You got your fucking request. Now reload the shit. Let's go. Yeah, whatever. Fuck you. We value my privacy. But that pisses me off more than anything. I've got ad blockers on to protect my privacy, right? These people require that I disable it, but they're intent on protecting my privacy. You believe that bullshit? Anyway, this is on itpro.co.uk. Gartner predicts 90% of current enterprise blockchain implementations will need replacing by 2021. Gartner has predicted that 90% blah blah blah, yeah, we got that, being one of the more cutting-edge technologies for enterprises to adopt. One might think that early adoption of the technology, which supports such cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, would mean a company would be fairly future-proof. However, Gartner forecasts a need to replace existing blockchain-based systems in order for forward-thinking organizations to remain cooperative and secure some 18 months from now, as well as avoid their systems from becoming obsolete. Quote, blockchain platforms are emerging platforms and, at this point, nearly indistinguishable in some cases from core blockchain technology, said Adrian Lee, Senior Research Director at Gartner. Many CIOs overestimate the capabilities and short-term benefits of blockchain as a technology to help them achieve their business goals, thus creating unrealistic expectations when assessing offerings from a blockchain platform, vendors, and service providers. These problems stem from the blockchain market being composed of fragmented systems and services that often overlap with each other or work in a complementary fashion, which, according to Gartner, makes choosing the right blockchain for a business a challenging proposition for an IT department. Quote, compounding this challenge is the fact that blockchain platform vendors typically use messaging that does not link to a target buyer's use cases and business benefits, explained Lee. For example, quote, transactions was the term mentioned the most in relation to blockchain, followed by secure and security. While these may be functions of a blockchain enabling technology, buyers are still confused as to how these functions are achieved or what benefits blockchain adds compared to their existing processes. I am too, by the way. The problem looks set to expand as enterprise interest in blockchain technologies continues to grow and more vendors of the technology enter the market, which would suggest that there will be more fragmentation rather than increased unification and standardization of platforms. Good. Diversification means competition. Quote, due to a lack of industry consensus on product concept, feature set, core application requirements, and target market, we do not expect there to be a single dominant blockchain platform within the next 5 years. Instead, we expect a multi-platform world to emerge, Lee predicted. Yeah, so not all your eggs in one basket. That's what they're saying here. Hold on one moment. I gotta rehydrate here. Despite this, Gartner expects the business value blockchain brings to the enterprise to the enterprise world will grow from $176 billion in 2025 to a massive $3.1 trillion by 2030. This is something enterprise product managers will need to keep in mind, according to Lee, as the rapid evolution and key obsolescence of platforms, alongside shifts competition in the market and the consolidation of blockchain products and services in the future, are all things to prepare for. And such members of the IT team will also need to be savvy to the potential failure of every stage technologies/functionality in the blockchain platform market. This is something we've talked about multiple times, and it's one of the reasons why you want your project to be mined by the public. And the reason being is you do not have to invest in hardware. You let them do that. You let them be rewarded for having invested in the hardware that will be hosting your transactions. Pick any cryptocurrency out there and use it. You know, if it's a functioning proof of work currency, chances are it will fit the bill that you're looking for. You know, if all you're needing is the information to be readily available pretty much globally, you can do that with blockchains. But again, you have your own system that's got associated tags with it, and that's where you would handle most of the sensitive data. You just have a cryptographic key for unlocking it. So that way you can do things like control access to it. Now, again, another problem with hosting your own quote-unquote blockchain is that you make yourself a massive target, and not just monetarily. If there's any sensitive data concerning your customers, your designs, your products, any of that information that you're storing on a quote-unquote blockchain, if your blockchain gets compromised, all of that shit gets potentially put into question as to whether or not you still own it, or whether or not you can profit on it because it's probably been disseminated to the entire public, or at least the other participants in the network that you had. You know, again, these are the incentive trade-offs that we do talk about in cryptocurrencies. You know, there's advantages of having your own thing, and sure, it's really efficient and all that, but it's not necessarily a blockchain, nor does it have the same level of security that a public blockchain gets from the participation of its miners. And this is why they need to be incentivized to not try and rob you. And that's best done with a block reward. And we've already got plenty of currencies out there that have such systems in action right now. You know, the idea that you need to build your own wheel just to get the transportability that the wheel enables is just bullshit. It's a fantasy. You know, I mean, it's not necessarily a risk that you have to undertake anymore. But again, you're putting your faith in whatever currency that you use. Now, of course, the information associated with it, well, you know, that's up to you. And the way that you manage it and all that again is up to you. And those, you know, any systems that you set up that you're the primary arbiter of, you know, by making yourself the center of attention, you make yourself a target. You know. And anyway, I got one more for this. It's on the Bitcoinist.com. Big banks announce fiat-pegged, quote, XRP killer crypto for settlements. And this is by Asato Nameo. Let's see, check something really quick here, because we like specifics, and of course these people don't give us that. Damn it, Jim. Anyway, maybe we'll figure it out. Big banks announce fiat-pegged XRP killer crypto for settlements. Settlement crypto coins for international remittance. I'm just going to go with yes on the penis thing. And this is authored, when was this authored? June 3rd, 2019 at 1200 hours. No indication of time zone. According to the Nikkei Asian Review, large banking corporations in Japan like MUFG and Sumitomo have led their counterparts in the US and Europe to establish Finality International. Based in London, Finality will create a cross-border settlement framework among participant banks that will utilize a fiat-pegged cryptocurrency. The startup, which has raised about $63 million in funding from these banking giants, will create accounts in each of the banks before issuing utility settlement tokens, or coins rather, USCs. These USCs, fiat-pegged cryptocurrencies, have a 1-to-1 ratio with the underlying fiat currencies. Thus, for a transfer originating in Japan and terminating in the US, the Japan bank will deposit the transaction amount in yen to Japan's central bank. On the other end, Finality issues the equivalent number of USCs to the receiving bank in the US before being converted to US dollars and sent to the recipient's bank account. According to the Wall Street Journal, WSJ, the system drastically reduces the cost of international payments by eliminating third-party intermediaries, even though it seems Finality sits, quote, in the middle of the transaction flow process. Speaking to WSJ, Haider Jaffrey, the investment strategy chief at UBS, one of the participating firms, said, quote, "You remove settlement risk, the counterparty risk, the market risk. All of those risks add up to costs and inefficiencies in the marketplace." So for its part, it has been exploring the possibility of creating USCs since 2015. Reports indicate that Finality's USC settlement platform will begin operations sometime in 2020. So will Ripple and XRP become irrelevant? Finality's USC comment is yet another addition to the class of potential Ripple/XRP competitors. The basic thesis of what the consortium is trying to achieve looks a lot like what Ripple has been trying to sell to banks all over the world. Banking institutions may be more amenable to the use of USCs than XRP in any of the current Ripple cross-border payment bundles, though crypto purists would argue that permission to uncentralized infrastructure like Finality and the USC are nonsense and aren't cryptocurrencies at all. USC also looks a lot like JPM Coin, the big announcement from JP Morgan, at the start of the year, but with a broader focus than just internal settlements. On the lighter side, Ultimate Secure Cash, USC, the 1,680th ranked cryptocurrency according to CoinMarketCap, may not be best pleased about the name clash. No, it's fucking hilarious. Do I think that Finality poses a risk to cripple? A threat to cripple? Ripple? No, I don't. And for the same reasons I noted about centralized private blockchains. Ripple is centralized as it is. I don't know. I would trust it over one of these quote-unquote USCs, because we have no idea what's going on behind in the background. They could just as easily be, waving the magic wand and creating the US dollars that they're issuing their coins against. We don't know. And I think that's one of the aspects that they're not really paying attention to with regard to the to putting it as a quote-unquote utility token, or utility coin rather. It seems to me that they're trying to skirt that. The definition of their thing is like an ICO or a security. Fact is, it is a security. It's representing a volume of monetary value, and it's a representation of it. It's not an actual, it's not an actual U.S. dollar. It's a representation of a U.S. dollar until it's converted to U.S. dollars. So yeah, I think that makes it a security. I would expect the SEC and other such organizations to be knocking on their door with that one. Anyway, it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. Watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And as far as our last dance is going to be, it's going to be Irreversible Mechanism, Simulacra. Last dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening. Good night.